Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Senior Transition Helpers. I'm Brian Sachs. With me is my partner, Joelle Sagner, and we have a very, very special guest. I think you're going to want to really pay attention to this, Jane Snell Simpson. And Jane, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Um,
you guys for having me.
it's our pleasure because we had the opportunity to meet prior to this episode, and I have to tell you, I was very, very taken aback in a very, very positive way. We all have ideas in our mind of certain things, and you go by the lifestyle contractor, and that is really so true. Um, while Joelle and I are realtors and also helping families transition from a home into a community when that's appropriate, oftentimes, sometimes people want to stay in their home. They prefer that, obviously, and if it's an option, how do we keep the home safe? There are steps, there is a shower, there are plenty of opportunities to fall and plenty of opportunities to get hurt, unfortunately. And so, in my mind and in my experience, going back to taking care of my parents when they were at home, I think of grab bars, ramps, all sorts of different things in the home that while they're good, they're not usually the most beautiful things. They're not subtle, right?
Yes.
And they're also an issue when you go eventually to sell that property.
Mhm.
And so, Jane, you rocked my world. You totally changed my mind and showed me what is possible. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay. Thank you both again for having me. Um, I just what you said, I go into homes and try to point out those things that they could do better to keep them safe. It's not something that if you just speak to a contractor or look a contractor up and think that they're going to come there and be able to do the same thing. It doesn't quite work that way because there's a lot of time and training and just a lot of skill to it that you have to really love doing it and spend the amount of time to understand what's going on when someone is, needs this done. And the thing that I always say is not wait for a crisis to happen. We don't plan. I think that's just something
Human
that
nature.
it really is. And I wish there was some way that I could get us to plan better, because what I do works best when we plan, because what I have to do, it's going to be an investment.
Mhm.
So what I do is um I go into homes, keep them safe. Usually families are the ones that are calling. It's the children, it's the caregivers. It's not the person, the senior or the same type of skill set and the same things that we do for seniors. We also do for people with disabilities. That's another group that I don't talk about it a lot, but it's the same um, types of things. But what I do is, but I can't help myself. I get out of the vehicle, get out of the car, and I'm automatically looking for barriers. And these barriers are not for you and I. We go in and we don't see these things because they're not barriers for us. We have legs, we walk like normal, and we don't have the issues that someone with a disability that may have um problems walking, or um there's all kinds of like arthritis. There's all kinds of issues that comes up when you're with seniors. And we don't have those things, so we don't see them. We just go about our daily lives without noticing these things. But I start looking from the time I get out of the vehicle and walk up to the door. And one of the main things that I see all the time is there's a step, at least one step, at least some transition to get into this house. Lots of times it's more than one step, but there's at least that. And I say, well, why did they do this when it could have so easily been done by just gradually making this incline with brick pavers, with concrete, so that there is no step. And it's just, what was done all these years. We just keep doing it. The other thing that I look for, I call this basic access. That's what it's known as in the industry. No step entry. Also the doorway being wide enough. Older homes, older than like, say 70s or and before 70. Those I automatically know if it's a home built before that, the doorways are going to be an issue because they didn't make doorways at 36-inch width back then. So I know that that's usually an issue. So that's something that we usually have to address. So having a doorway wide enough that a wheelchair can fit through. Having a bathroom on the ground floor is another thing that's important. And it can't just be any bathroom like a powder room that only has a sink and a toilet. It needs to be a full bathroom so that if you ever in a situation and need to access it and you're using a walker or a wheelchair, you can go in there and be able to use it. Obviously, the doorway needs to be wide enough, but it needs to have enough room for you to move around in there. And also, those are the main things that basic access is what we call it. I would say those are the main things.
What really sort of amazed me, and I'm going to give a shout out to your husband, who's a architect as well. So a contractor and an architect get married. Can you imagine
Sounds
that?
like a
What the
joke.
result of that is, right? But you both took the time to show me what it can look like, and there was no way in the world that I would have known, Jane, that home was really fitted for someone with a disability or a senior citizen. The toilet area, the shower area, the hallways. I mean, it looked super sharp with no sign that says this has been, for lack of a better term, and I apologize, seniorized, if you will. Tell us a little bit about your thought process and why you do it and how you do that.
So that came later, after we started working with folks and realizing what's important to them. I quickly began to realize that one of the main reasons that they don't want to do this, it's not just the investment. It's also they want their home to feel and look like a home. Very important. You don't want to go, to your home and have it feel like a facility.
Right.
And a lot of the times many times when I see this type of work done, it's a quick fix type situation that ends up staying a whole lot longer than it should. And I'm very conscious of that because I feel like your home should be your castle. You should be comfortable there. It's why, you've been there. Many of them have been there many, many years, and it's where they feel the most comfort. So let's keep it that way. I could tell you a quick story. I had a client who was unsteady on her feet, and I actually was brought into the job through a designer that I know who's also CAP certified, and then CAP stands for Certified Aging in Place Specialist, which I have that designation and my husband has that as well. We've had it for years. But anyway, she brought me in because this house was beautiful. I mean, it's actually local, but she has the steps everywhere. I really had never been in a home quite like this before. To go to the front door, there's about 4 or 5 steps. You get in the home, you're staring at stairs to go up to the second floor. You look to your left, and there's a step down to go into the den living room area. I couldn't believe, and they were in their 80s, I think, early 80s.
It's
So
funny when I see houses like that, and I've seen plenty, I don't know how many are in Florida, but in Maryland, there's plenty of those. And it just blows my mind that anybody would build a house like that.
it was gorgeous though. I felt like I was in Italy or somewhere, the way, it looked and it felt. But it was just unsafe. And
Mm.
you could tell she was really unsteady on her feet. Anyway, she didn't want to do anything unless it coordinated with the home. And I totally understood that.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, and we ended up coming up with the nicest, it was more like a wrought iron look. It
Mhm.
grab bars, they weren't really grab bars, they were rails. They were rails. But she needed something to just hold on to as she was walking throughout the home and to come down the stairs every day to come out of her house. You could just look at her and see. So, what we did is before we install while we're installing something like that, the homeowner is usually there and we take our time with them and just see how they do it. And we install whatever we're installing, we're going to complement what they do already. We want to do that as much as possible. And she appreciated it. But it was a interesting experience, but it taught me a lot. People do care about, what goes in their home. They don't want their friends to come over and see that they have an issue.
Of course.
So, yeah, very important.
Yeah. Yeah,
Even to
well,
the point where they won't even do it.
yeah.
If they'll risk the fall if you're not paying attention and you're going to install something that's hideous, they just won't do it. And
It's
that was
interesting.
that was very interesting.
Yeah, because I am taking care of my parents. I moved down here to be in the same home with my parents to help care for them. And thank God they're pretty functional, but my father falls a lot. And I've done a lot of things that I thought I could do to make the house safer. But he's, like most people, very prideful. He won't use
Mhm,
a cane.
mhm.
I could imagine if I wanted to put in a grab bar, he would pitch a fit. They don't want, as just as anybody, you don't want people to see your disability. You don't want people to see your weakness or that you're becoming more frail. Nobody, we all look in the mirror, no matter what age we are, and we see ourselves as 20-year-olds, right? We don't
Exactly.
see that we're
Exactly.
in our 50s, 60s, 70s. We still see ourselves as that young person. So it's a really hard pill to swallow to have some of these things. And I love, love, love what you're doing, that it fits right in and no one would really know. It's sort of an enhancement, something that makes it more beautiful, maybe
It,
even than
it
the way it
actually,
was
what
before.
I've seen actually increases the value of the home. Seems
Exactly.
to me.
That's a good
So
point.
Jane, there's something else we should probably talk about. We have about 10 minutes to go. And um, we're talking about aging in place in the home. But there's a recent innovation that I know you're very, very attuned to and involved in and very knowledgeable about, where theoretically the everyone gets to maintain their privacy and the parent or parents can still live with the children without causing any sort of grief or chaos. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, that's my opening for the ADUs. That's a very hot term. Stands for accessible dwelling units. Has a bunch of names, cottage, mother-in-law suites, granny
Granny flat.
flats, which
Yep.
I love. Detached unit in the backyard. How about that? Um, I love it because I think it checks a lot of boxes.
Mhm.
Main one being, your parents being really close to you, but still having their independence in their own doorway, privacy, that they can come and go as they please, but you can also keep a close eye on them and know what's going on and not having to rely on others to tell you necessarily what's going on. Saves a lot of time. If you're building this and it's in your backyard, or if you're building it and it's in their backyard. You know, there are different things that can be had there. I've seen people move into them, their mom or their dad move into the ADU themselves and then rent their own space out, the main home, because it brings more value to them, more money coming in every month, because it's a much larger space. You can get more income. The value of the home itself increases somewhere between 30 and 40% by building one.
Wow.
So that's also, I think, significant. There's something that a lot of people don't know about, called a granny flat exemption. And it helps you with the taxes. I'm not going to go into how it works, but look into that, because that's something that if you're considering building one or want one, then that's something, tax savings. The cost of of building this could actually be written off in
Wow.
some cases. So I find that significant.
I would definitely say if somebody were looking to do one of these ADUs, you are the go-to person, because you really have a wide breadth of knowledge about this, including these tax benefits, which I know you're not an accountant, you can't give them accounting advice, but you can put them in the right direction. And that is, I think when people think about it, they think, okay, that's an option, but somebody's got to lay out the money. But if it's a tax benefit, that changes the game.
Yeah, and a lot of times it may not be necessarily about needing the money, but just, if they're trying to make a decision between going to a facility or keeping their home, they're thinking about, okay, if we sell it, this is what happens. But what if we keep it? And, we have a caregiver here. Maybe the caregiver lives in the granny flat. She has her privacy, or him, and they can come and go as they please. But then they're also able to take care of mom or dad, and they're not uprooted at all. Their life stays the same. But then you have a nice property that's increased in value, and you don't have to do anything. Because that's another thing. When people leave the space, they're thinking, oh, we made all these improvements for mom or dad. Now we got to pay money to rip them all out or do remodel. You don't if it's done correctly. You don't. It's actually, like Brian said, it's added value.
Yeah.
It looks super, super sharp. I mean, I can tell you that just from looking at it. And I'll also tell you that the ADU, when you go to resell the property, any income from that ADU can be used as qualifying income for the people you sell it to. So people that may be marginal, FHA and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have come to make this more mainstream and acknowledged ADUs across the country. It's a great idea. And you certainly seem to be the go-to resource, Jane. I truly, Joel, and I both truly appreciate all the knowledge you share. We could talk to you literally for 2 or 3 hours. There's that much great knowledge. But I want to be sensitive to our listeners as well. So how do they reach you, Jane?
Our website is a good place to start. And that's, if you can remember, the Lifestyle Contractor. I have it here on my shirt. You can type that in .com and it'll reach our website. The name of the company, the construction company is JS1 construction.com. You could put .com on the end of that as well, and you'll reach us. So, phone number, I don't know if that makes sense to say a phone number, but 954-410-9566.
Right. Super. Well, we truly appreciate you. And if you're watching this and like this content, obviously hit subscribe. Leave your thoughts. If there's a topic you'd like Joelle and I to cover on an upcoming episode, let us know that as well. If you want to reach me, it's 443-324-8424. And Joelle?
443-277-3160.
Okay. And you can also reach us at seniortransitionhelpers@gmail.com. Thank you, and we'll be back next week with another episode.